one thing, if you do know the Toyota MRSs, they have a major issue, specifically the MRS, the sequential gearbox. It's got sensors, and directly above the sensors are hydraulic pipes, and sometimes they can leak. And the biggest problem with those is the pipes actually leak directly on the sensor and wrecks the sensors. Yep. Now, there was only 600 ever made, so trying to find a sensor is as hard as trying to find a hen with teeth.
Yeah. Hen's teeth.
You just can't do it. It's impossible. We looked, and there was one supplier who had sensors, but they're apparently out of stock 10 years ago. So they still have it on the website, but it's just currently out of stock, waiting for stock to come in. 10 years later, they still have no stock. So I don't think we'll ever see a new manufacturer of those sensors. Just too little demand.
Then where did you get them? Because the sensors had broke on them.
Yeah, so sensors needed replaced. And my dad actually managed to find a fella in America who had done a YouTube video too on how to fix those sensors. Mm-hmm. And he actually, that's his entire thing he does. Is those specific cars, he's gone and he's bought a whole load of parts. So from the gearbox control modules, like ECU, just for the gearbox, he's bought loads of different sensors off ones that have been crashed or scrapped or whatever he's managed to get hold of.
Oh, so it's a genuine sensor? I thought it was like a remade one.
No, it's a genuine sensor.
Okay, good.
That he's taken, and he's had to remake the interior on the inside of the sensor to get it to work.
Yep.
Because someone's crashed the car or they've had the same issue. They've taken the gearbox out, put a normal manual gearbox in it, which is what a lot of people do with those cars because of the issues. You can't find the parts. So he's bought the sensors that don't work, and he's actually manually remade the sensors interior. So fantastic work for this man. I don't know his name, but I will get it. We can just drop it on the screen.
Yeah.
But if you do have MRS and you have any issues with the gearbox, I recommend you speak to him. We paid him online, before we'd even had anything shipped or delivered. He shipped it, delivered it, no issues, no problems. You could call him, everything. I highly recommend it.
Brilliant. Okay, I actually didn't know that.
But it's crazy because the fella originally bought the car about must have been nearly 8 years ago now.
The guy who owned it before you?
Yes, the guy who owned it before us. He bought the car in Japan and had the car shipped from Japan to the UK to get on the road. And in the interim, that entire time, the car had that issue. I don't know if it was because of the transport or whatever it was. But he shipped the car here and he could never basically drive it. He could never get it working. He took it to Toyota, the dealer, and it sat at Toyota for I think it was like 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. I think it was. But it basically sat at Toyota for a very long time. And then I went to a couple of mechanics and not even Toyota could get the car fixed. We had the car and realistically it wasn't worth the time for him to pay us to repair it. And it was just such a rare thing. It was nearly scrap because, you couldn't get the parts. You couldn't fix it. So what do you do with the car you can't fix, you can't get the parts for?
Yep.
You can't spend £1 million hiring people to spend their entire life to work and find parts and stuff like that, or even make parts. Mm-hmm. So my dad actually bought the car from him, basically as a car that was going to get scrapped away. It was going to get taken to the scrapyard, and he thought he'd give it another go, and he spent maybe 100 or 200 hours just out of purely interest and frustration of he should be able to get the car fixed. And my dad has a saying of, if it doesn't have a mother or father, he can fix it. So he was trying to prove himself right. And that's actually how it came about. He spent many, many weekends, many hours after, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, just like banging his head against the wall, trying to understand how this car works. To the point, I had friends that did software, spoke to them. Could we do this here? Let's do this here. And we got the actual Toyota TechStream software to actually be able to diagnose it.
Okay.
And try and understand it. And even then it was still chaos.
Oh God!
We took the gearbox out. The gearbox, that the actual control modules, TCU or whatever it is.
Yep.
I think maybe at least 5 or 6 times one night alone. Mm-hmm. So we've had it out maybe about 30, 40 times because you get it in and it would work. We'd recalibrate and retest it. Then it would work, and then 10 minutes later it would just stop working again. We had to get sensors. We had to get new control module for the gearbox as well. That had given issue. Mm-hmm. So we had to end up replacing the control module for the gearbox. Both sensors for the gearbox. There's actually 3 sensors there, but one sensor was grand. So we actually have some spare sensors and the spare parts as well. But we can now do it in like 20 minutes. We can do like a Formula 1 kind of dismantle and reassembly of that gearbox.
You're so good with it, yeah.
Yeah, and we had to make special tools because how you actually get the screws in, there's not actually enough space for a normal screw. Screwdriver. You've got to go and make special stuff to get out and in. real chaos. But it's working, and we got it working, and you started to drive it now, and there's no issues.
I remember when my dad came in to drop his Land Rover in for rust repairs.
Yeah.
He spoke to your dad, and your dad said, "Oh, I'm not giving up on this car. Not giving up." And my dad said, sure. He says, "Nope, I'm not giving up." He was consistent.
You couldn't have paid someone to. It wouldn't have been worth anyone's while to pay for someone to look at it and fix it. The amount of time and effort just in pure this isn't work. Like, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. We went through every single sensor on that car.
Yep.
Every single wire, every single pump, every single pipe, every single little gearbox thing. My dad completely dismantled the gearbox pots.
Mm-hmm.
Check maybe there's something there was jamming it or something. So you couldn't have paid someone the time and effort to go and actually fix it. It was purely just a labor of love.
Oh yeah.
He bought it for my mom. So he fixed it up for my mom as a little present for her. But I remember actually before it had gone completely fixed and we've just been working and no issues, I actually went to take it for MOT. Mm-hmm. Took it to MOT. Told the guy, look, this is the car. Don't turn it off in gear because it has a tendency to jam the gearbox. He didn't listen. He knows exactly how to fix a car. So he knows exactly how to drive a car. He's worked at the MOT. He's worked for 10 years. He knows how to drive a car. So what does he do? He drives in, turns the car off in gear and jams the gearbox. Had to get it towed. No, not towed. We had to get it on a recovery lorry from Lisburn all the way back to Lawrence. That obviously cost a pretty penny. Then had to take out the gearbox, unjam the gearbox, and refix all the issues. So it's a temperamental car, but it's a very fun little car. It's very light. It's rear wheel drive, rear engine. So.
I actually didn't know that you can't turn it off in gear.
Yeah, well, we managed to get that. It was an issue with that specific car.
Oh, is it sorted? Can you turn it off in gear now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the time it was just being difficult because of the sensors.
Yeah.
Because that was before we had the guy who could actually give us new sensors.
Right.
So the sensors, if they were in the wrong position, it would give the wrong reading. And what the computer would do is the computer would say, "Oh, this is the wrong position. It's out of the range of where it should be."
Yep.
And it would go, "Oh no, I don't know what to do," and just see the stars around his head and just go, "Wee, I don't know what to do," and just jam up.
So the car needs to be perfect for it to work, basically. Yeah.
Basically, yeah, you can't have a sensor giving you the wrong reading,
yep.
Even if it's the smallest out.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work. You have to have literally perfect. If it's not perfect, it's not going to work. It's very much like Japanese cars. It has to be perfect, but they just forgot that not every time it's perfect. Yeah. So there was no variation in what the sensor could say.
Yeah.